Get with it, Micayla.
Just in case you guys thought this was an amazing.
Oh wait, Ankati's not in mine.
We're here to show you it's messy.
Alright, are we good?
Wait, Micayla.
It's never right. Nothing's ever
enough.
perfect. I think I just broke the stool.
Alright, we're
I'm
live.
having some hip pain.
Welcome to Wild Friends Podcast. Are you two having hip pain?
Get that out there.
Maybe you need to do some more yoga.
I do.
Wow, we have just a lady here for you.
Wow. Is that not weird?
No, just
It's like showing our whole selves.
Yeah,
it's like
just
a lot to handle.
let it. It's beautiful.
You want to tilt it up a little?
Nope.
It's good.
No, it's great.
It's great.
It's wonderful.
It's great.
Are you feeling comfortable?
Yeah.
That's
It's a little warm in my hips with
yeah.
everything, but other than that, I feel good. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah?
I'm great. I got to sleep in a little bit this morning because now we're here at noon, so.
Yeah.
No, it's 9 a.m.
Oh wait, I was like,
It's 9 a.m. guys.
9 a.m. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I guess. For time. Oh, the people are coming on, so it's working out.
I feel it always takes me a second to
All right, just settle in.
get
All
good.
right.
Cool. Welcome. Did we say that already?
Yeah. So why don't I just start as we always do? We'll hear people who we are.
Yeah, because you're live.
Yeah.
I'm live over there.
Cool. So we'll tell your people a little bit about ourselves briefly, and then we'll introduce you to our people.
You're up.
Hi, all the people.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, on Ankati's live, I'm Micayla. My business is Micayla Jean Photography. I work with adventurous couples, and I do a lot of women's empowerment portraiture. And my other business is this space that we are in, Maple and Moon Creative. We rent out the space to creatives and photographers who need a place to shoot or host workshops. And I'm the other half of Wild Hearts.
Bam. Hello, Ankati's humans. My name is Sean Adam. I'm also a human. I am the co-host of Wild Hearts Podcast. I also have an inspirational speaking business called Up and Adam Inspirational Speaking, and that is designed off of kind of my life experiences with mental health and kind of overcoming challenges, putting that work out into the world. I additionally have a book called Guts, Grit, and Grind, a mental fitness manual that will be coming out this May. That's myself and 35 other male authors that kind of explain their stories, and it's designed to kind of be like a car manual for anyone going through mental health.
A car manual, is that what you said?
Yeah, literally, it's designed like, you open up the car manual and you're like, oh, the transmission's broken, go to page 27. This is like,
Sweet.
yeah, this is like, oh, you have depression and anxiety, go to page 27 to hear what Sean and Phil's story for that.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. And that's me. And you are you.
Who are you?
Oh my God.
Tell us.
Hey, Wild Hearts people. I'm Ankati. I am. We'll start there.
Good place.
I am. Let's see. I'm a yoga teacher. I teach both kind of regular vinyasa yoga as well as booty yoga. That's B-U-T-I, not B-O-O-T-Y. Different. I teach yoga teacher trainings here on the Seacoast through Bar and Soul. I also teach for Yoga Smith. I do sound healing with singing bowls, and I also write a lot. These days, primarily poetry.
And she has an angelic voice.
Yeah, I sing a lot.
She forgot that part.
I sing a lot.
It's pretty important. I mean, if I had some of those recordings right now, I swear to God, remember
We'll
what we
just
did?
play them for you.
What?
We'll just play them for you.
Later. Also, I just want people to know. You know what we haven't done in a really long time?
What?
How we met the human.
How we met the human.
Yeah.
Let's start that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How we met the human.
Human is a big topic of conversation.
Yeah,
That's my
let's play
go-to.
how we met the human.
I also just wanted to do this because Ankati is a very special human being in my life. We met actually doing booty. That's I forget that sometimes. Yeah, on Fortree Island, I was shaking my ass, and my shorts didn't have a drawstring, so they kept coming out. So that was the first meeting.
Good details.
But
like at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or like something really.
it wasn't
early in the morning.
egregious. I mean, it was early, but it wasn't like agreed. It was like 7:30. But yeah, I met you there, and you were, I call you my guardian angel, because very influential person in my life in a very rough time. So that was us.
Thanks.
My turn to play How I Met the Human.
Calm down.
Well, we just figured this out actually the other day at coffee. That I think the first time I met you was at the restorative yoga class at Yoga Smith with Karen and Shelly.
Yes.
And you were singing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gorgeous.
And Shelly was like, "This chick's gonna come and take pictures."
And then I think like halfway through, I just laid down. It was awesome.
You did.
Sounds about right.
I was like, this feels better.
Photography, restorative yoga.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, on next week's episode of How I Met the Human. Well, okay, let's start with like your journey into yoga, because that's such a huge part of your life.
Mm-hmm. I think my journey into yoga is like it is for a lot of people. It's kind of a sideways or like backdoor experience. When I was in college, I went to a small competitive liberal arts school. And coming from like middle of nowhere Maine, it was just an entirely different atmosphere for me to be in. And I started over exercising. I started running like 8 to 10 to 12 miles a day, every day, no rest. And developed some pretty solid tendinitis in both my knees to the point where like going upstairs was really hard. And a friend of mine was like, maybe you should try this yoga thing. Like the outing club is having a class. You should just come over, maybe it'll help your knees. So I started doing yoga as a way to hopefully fix my knees so that I could get back to running. And over time, as it seems like, again, yoga does for a lot of people, it was like, I think this actually just helps me feel better, like in general. I, at that point, and for a lot of my life, had struggled with anxiety as well. And found that when I went to yoga, like, my anxiety felt better and I slept better. And I can't even say that within the first year or 2 years I like got it, that yoga was a powerful thing. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know, keep doing this thing. I guess I feel better. But later in college, like my senior year, I got it. It was like, yoga. Yoga is like the thing. So at that point, I became known as the girl who I'd make dinner plans with all my friends, like meet at 6 or something, and I'd show up at 6:30 because I needed to practice yoga and I fell asleep in class. And again, but I was like religiously dedicated to it at that point. Yeah.
I wonder when you first started, just because it was kind of this accidental thing, and you already seemed to be pretty like competitive with yourself with running. I know when I started yoga, it was all about like, I gotta get like the pose, like my leg needs to be over my head, and like it hurts, but I gotta get there.
Yeah.
Which I also don't think I'm on. I think it's a lot of hearing.
No.
So I'm curious if that was like your experience to start, or if you were just kind of like fumbling around with it.
When I first started, it was really gentle hatha, like very mellow. So I think it was also something that often happens for people when they first start, where I was like, well, this isn't a workout. So like, I also need to burn my calories somehow. Later on when I got into Ashtanga, totally. I was a gymnast when I was a kid, so I had a lot of natural flexibility. So I definitely got to the point where I was like, well, I guess my back just hurts every time I do yoga. I don't know. I guess that's just how yoga is. And then eventually a teacher was like, it's because you're pushing too hard. I mean, anybody out there who practices yoga, like, we know that the layers of what yoga teaches you, oh my God, they just keep going. Like the time that you hurt yourself and you realize, oh, there were a lot of cues that I was getting from my body that I wasn't listening to. And now here I am. I mess myself up and it's going to take a while. It definitely has happened over and over, and I'm sure will continue to.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's really cool though, is just learning. Yeah, I mean, you posted about this this morning. It's actually so funny. About listening to your.
It's so
It's so bad.
Yeah, it's so good.
You know,
I'm just so prolific.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Oh, yeah, yes.
But she literally posted about like the cues are about like she's like you're like thank you body for like trying to send me messages.
Yeah.
Because when did anyone in your life ever, at least for me, growing up, teach you that like, oh, like when there's stuff going tweaky with your body, like it's your body speaking to you.
Right.
Like that never happened.
Right, and I definitely have always been one who it's like your body will be like, hey, and you're like, and then body's like, right, and then body like punches you in the face,
Yeah.
and then I would listen. Right, yeah.
I think that's everyone though. Like I think, like you said, because nobody teaches you that. Nobody teaches you to listen.
What's the meme on the Insta world? It's like body is like, hey, I'm hungry and like jittery, and then me is like, maybe I should have some more coffee, or like body's like, I need some food. Oh well, no. I totally just watched that. But
Yeah, no, well, I don't know. There's one that I was thinking. It's like your body's like, oh, my like arm hurts or something. And then like, I think we should do this, and then your soul's or is it your heart or your soul? One of them.
We're all watching.
They are so weird. I was like, yes, and laughing. And I thought I had it. Like in my head, there was like a list, and then it just did not come out. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. But basically, like, if you both shut up and just listen to me, I'll give you the answer kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's also, I just want to talk about that too, because it's like being patient with yourself, right, in the unlearning process, right? So like, that takes a long time to even like get to that point, like, oh, you're really trying to tell me things I should like this, and then trusting it at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And like, even taking a step beyond that, what are you trying to tell me?
Well, that's a tricky part too, trusting it. Like, especially in the kind of like society that we grow up in, where you have a pain or something and take medicine for it, right? Like, it's hard to kind of like walk that line of, is something actually like really wrong with me that I need to seek medical attention for, or is it just my body speaking to me? You know what I mean?
Right. And so many people have the experiences where they have something going on with their body. They go to the doctor, and the doctor runs a battery of tests and is like, you're fine.
Yeah.
All the tests say you're fine. And that person's like, well, I still feel like hell, but I mean, I guess the doctor says I'm fine, so I guess this is just normal, and then I should just take a lot of ibuprofen or, whatever, drink more coffee or take sleeping pills. Oh my God, that's such a chronic one. People who are like, I have a hard time sleeping. The doctor's like, well, I mean, you're fine, so just take some sleeping pills.
Or like, how many
That's
times did
normal.
you go to the doctor when you were little and they're just like, just take Advil, it'll be fine.
Or here's some antibiotics.
Yeah, that too, even worse.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
But we live in a time where we are encouraged to not trust that inner knowing that something's wrong, and or so often the thing that is wrong is like, we need to sleep more, we need to slow down, and maybe we need to like spend some more quality time with good people, not on our phones. And all those things are things that we are kind of well programmed to feel guilty or ashamed about.
Oh, yeah.
The privilege of being able to slow down, or like the privilege of going to a yoga class, or the privilege of sleeping 8 hours, right? How many of us have had conversations with people where they're like, oh my God, I got like 8 hours of sleep last night, so great.
Yeah.
like, that should be normal.
I know.
Well, it's like the prior to
It's hard to
see.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, that would be so amazing right now. Like, go get that.
You're not making off.
It's enough. It's enough. Yeah.
What's the read? That's okay. Sorry. Who's counting?
Your body is Sean.
Yeah, this is an episode for you, Sean.
Well, it was so funny because, like, okay, I guess we'll just talk about it this morning. But like this morning, perfect example. I feel like so many things on the outward. Like I've often heard like when your energy is like a little dysfunctional, like that's when things happen in your car, or that's when you like stub your toe, or so something happened in my car this morning. It's in the shop. I had to take an Uber here. I went to climb up a loader to talk to this older guy, Jimmy, at work. Hit my head off of his mirror. Came here, was like, all right, just trying to keep the positive vibes going. It's all good. And I was like petting these dogs, and there's a rail in the elevator. Just came right up and jacked my back on it. I'm like,
You gotta slow down.
yeah, my body's trying to tell me a lot of things, and I'm not listening. So I'm not great at it, but I do know that it's a real thing.
It's a practice.
It's a practice.
It's an everyday practice.
And it's not perfect always.
Oh,
You
it's
go,
never
you have to
perfect.
go through the.
Well, I think like, well, that's what's so cool though too. Is like I'm proud of myself, not necessarily with like how smoothly or efficiently things went, but just like the patience, right?
Mm.
And the gentleness on myself. Not like, oh, you're up or this or that. It's just like, all right, it's okay. You know, it's not perfect. We're just gonna keep doing it.
I've only just recently gotten on the audiobook train, which like, I don't know what I was thinking, why I haven't been doing that for longer, but I'm listening to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a...
Say you can say it.
I can say it? Okay, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yes.
I didn't ask
With the
not
word.
giving up. Yeah.
Good job though.
Yeah, thanks. And a big part of what he's talking about is like, life has problems. That's just it. There are problems. There are struggles in life. We can't pretend that it's ever going to get perfect, and it's the pressure that we put on ourselves for it to be perfect that makes those problems suck way more than if we were like, there's a problem. Okay, like what am I gonna do? My car, needs to go to the shop. I'm supposed to be at this place. Okay, well, I'm gonna figure out what to do about it instead of throw a temper tantrum and like now think that, right? It can often be this spiritual bypassing thing that we do when we're like, oh my God, like things in my life are going wrong. Like I must have pissed off the universe, and like now I need to go to a silent retreat for 2 weeks or something and like repent. Or I don't know, like I need to get right with my angels rather than just be like, I don't know, some like shit happened to my car.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I love that you just said that. So, because I mean, we've all been there, right? Like,
totally.
I'm laughing because there was a point in my life where like that was it.
Yeah.
Like this morning because there was like some of those thoughts at first, and I'm like, okay, that's like not the case. This is all somehow happening for me. I don't understand it in the moment.
Right.
And what's the solution?
Yeah.
And I just like kept it as simple as that. And maybe it's just because I'm really tired and I'm having energy to get upset.
It's the subtle art of not giving
Yeah,
up.
it was just kind of like, yeah, fuck it.
Here we are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right here, so.
Yeah, we made it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Everybody.
Yes. So your journey, you accidentally got into it, and then.
It's true.
Oh, you guys make fun of me. I'm just kidding. So you got into it, and then kind of talk to them as you progress through it. Like you talked about the layers, right? And like talk about how it's kind of led you to the next thing. Because even now, you're doing like this Boston movement, which is like almost like a form of Ido Portal, correct?
Correct. Ido Portal,
So which is-
trained folks. Hi, body movement.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's like that's where you are now, but talk about kind of that transgression through that, because it's been how many years now for you?
I mean, I've been practicing since I was, since I was 18. I found yoga when I was 18 or 19, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has continued to be just, and I feel super blessed that it has been this way, but it's been an exploration the whole way along. After college, when I moved to the White Mountains, lo and behold, small town, one yoga studio, the teacher, me, and one other person. So I spent a good couple of years there studying really intensively that way. And then when I moved to Montana, found myself in a different community that offered me a different language to study and practice. Found my way eventually, we won't go through the whole long story, but to yoga teacher training at a community in Costa Rica, where I showed up thinking I was pretty hot shit, being I can do back bends, I can do fancy arm balances, I can do yoga, and I was the first one on the floor in a puddle of tears in my training. First one. Recognizing how much deeper and how much more power there is to yoga than just doing fancy poses. And it's kind of crazy to me to think that it took almost 10 years of practice to get there. 9 years. To get to the point where I was oh, it's not about pushing myself to a full split or whatever it may be. That was a huge pivot point for me. That was a huge pivot point, to have teachers stand in front of me and go, actually, you might get more out of the practice if you back out of all the stuff that you've been doing and simplify and start from the beginning and get into the subtleties of what your practice feels like rather than going for what it looks like. And that was something I never really considered. I knew that it helped my anxiety, but I never really considered beyond that, subtle body. How does my breath move? How does it feel to be in this pose? Rather than can I get the full bind? And can I perfectly stuck my knee over my ankle? And that shift has really influenced how everything has gone forward. When I found Booty, it was because I was on YouTube searching yoga dance because I loved yoga and I loved dance, and I knew there had to be a way to fuse them because it just felt so celebratory and so good and so playful in my body to move in that way. And then getting into stuff with body of work, which that's a very new pursuit for me. It's a new way of exploring movement of oh, okay, if I have a teacher, show me some crazy way to roll across the floor. Can I figure that out? Can I get my body to be strong and move in that way? And a lot of it's brain, also strength. But overall, yeah, just continuing to get more and more and more subtle. What layer can I tune into my own experience and strength and flexibility, and also listen to those cues in my body? My body's no, not that one. I do that one.
Yeah. Is there any real symbolism that you recognize in your life with this? You have these teachers telling you that maybe you'll get more out of the practice if you back out. Is there any big symbolism in your personal life hearing that?
Yeah.
Deep sigh.
Woo!
Woo! Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably always and forever will identify as something of a recovering perfectionist. Just this idea of always gotta go for the best and the perfect, and if there's someone in a book doing it, and it looks like that, well then god damn it, I gotta do it and it's gonna look like that. I remember in college, I got a C on a paper once. It nearly wrecked me. was like, I do not get C's on papers. What? So having someone say, like, actually, you might get more from not looking like the person in the book. You might get more from slowing down. Hey, what would happen if you don't do 1,000 vinyasas? And a big part of that is that we get into the like Buddhist side of things, right? The non-attachment is, can I separate like how I identify myself from some external standard of achievement or perfection, or like, what if I'm not a perfect yogi who looks like the person in the book? Like, am I still okay? Yeah, totally. In my mind, was I? No.
I think there's two questions I have kind of tapping into the question Micayla had is, you talked about like feeling into your practice. So I feel like so many of us in life set these like goals, right? Of like what we want to achieve. And we're not paying attention to how it's feeling. Right. And you know, it's not like it's gonna be perfect, you know, today's perfect example of that. But it's just this idea of like, and maybe not even attaching to how it should feel a certain way, but there is such a thing as like 8 hours of sleep, like shouldn't be like a gift, like that should be kind of a norm, or you know, feeling good or feeling constantly stressed, or like those, like, you know what I mean, like, and I feel like, again, knowing you, because I remember you talked about when you first started your business in Montana, you're like, oh, yeah. Which, I mean,
does that look like?
Which I can totally relate to. You know, so just kind of like the evolution of that to like just where you are now. Like obviously, you're, like we were talking about when we hiked last year, you're like, I'm so proud of myself, like doing this and this and this, and I highly doubt you're that person. And I'm sure there's still pieces out there, but you just seem to be this much more calm presence and just like this faith and this trusting in the flow, and things just keep happening and opportunities keep showing up.
Yeah, and I think that last thing that you just said has been crucial for me to keep reminding myself of. It's like, yeah, when I started my business when I was in Montana, oh my God, I operated on the like, you know, work more hours and you'll be more successful model. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of us, for a lot of people when we start endeavors. It's just like all in 120%, you just stop sleeping for a while and like make it happen. And to some degree, you know, when you first start something, that's part of it. Like things come up and surprise you. I'm sure with you opening the space recently, right? Like it's the night before the opening and you're like, what? Like, I'm still gonna, whatever. Yeah. But that's not sustainable. And these days, I think the feeling into it thing, I know sometimes it'll get partway through the day and I'm sitting in my computer writing or something and it's like, oh, my shoulders are like in my ears and I'm not breathing. And I feel like shit, I have a headache. It's like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. This feels terrible. My body's telling me something. My body's telling me something. Yeah. And I probably can't really focus if I'm not breathing. My shoulders are in my ears and I'm like, forgotten to eat.
Yeah.
Forgotten to eat.
Can't get my words right, you know.
But that's it too, though. As I mean, we're all kind of striving to operate from like our highest self, right? And when we do these things that are kind of out of alignment and like are just out of balance and pushing too much, like oftentimes we don't say our words right, or we crash our cars, or we do these crazy things. And it's not to say you don't keep going, but I think if what's been super important, and this is kind of something you taught me, is like take a moment to like breathe it in. Like, what's it look like? What's it feel like? Where are your shoulders? Where's your body? What's this? Like, what does it actually feel like in there? You know, and then kind of readjust, because it's, in my opinion, like business, especially small business, is just like a big science experiment. I'm trying this. All right, this is like 85 hours. Well, it's like sort of working from like sort of time. Okay, so like the stress and all different, you know. And it's just this constant shifting, you know. which I think is ultra important. And so it all comes back to that feeling.
Yeah. And also, I feel fortunate that at this point in my career life, I have like my own case study of my life, you know, of like, oh, so there was that time period where I thought I was working my ass off in a way that would make me successful. Turns out it just sucked and I was broke. Like, well, okay, that didn't work. You know, I focused on just being like the best damn yoga teacher I could be when I started teaching on the Seacoast, and fine-tuning my teaching and like just getting myself out there and teaching and doing events where I could. And then the opportunities started to come in. Not because I was like up until 3 a.m. every day working on my website, but because I just focused on being a really good yoga teacher, because that's what I do. And then the opportunities come.
Speaking of being on the Seacoast, because I mean, so obviously, everyone pretty much has been on the podcast so far everybody probably lives on the Seacoast right now, and like, our community is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in Maine, you left, and then you came back.
Yep.
So can you kind of talk about how being back on the Seacoast and maybe this community in this area kind of shaped your business and how it transformed a little bit?
Yeah. When I came back, it was almost an entirely fresh start, which is interesting because I left when I was, you know, at college, and then when I came back, I knew like 2 people, and went to Zev. It was Zev Yoga at that point. Now it is Yoga Smith, for a class. Met Jonas Amberger, who owned Zev Yoga, now owns Shiloh Farm. And took a class with him. We like had tea or something at another point, and he was like, well, do you want to teach here? And I kind of looked at him and was like, you don't know me, you don't know my teaching. And he was like, no, it's okay. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. I was like, okay. So I started teaching at Zev, and this community has really shown me that when I just like bring my open heart, I mean, when we talked, I was like, I just moved back from my commune in Costa Rica. I like don't know what I'm doing with my life. And he gave me a place to land. And that has continued to happen. That when I just show up, people are like, cool, well, do you want to do this thing? And I'm like, okay. Yeah, great. It's that connection. I mean, we've heard this 1,000 times, right? It's not like, it's about who you know and how you connect with them and how you are willing to show up and support them and be there for them. And you guys know this, like, we're talking into a microphone that your community showed up and supported you for. Do that.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, and it was even again, community, like you had 100 people here on Saturday night.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just incredible.
Where?
I'm here. It was crazy.
Yeah, I had to go outside. I won't fucking go. It's just stuff you should.
Not my dad.
I just
Any longer. Well, another beautiful example of that is your crystal sound bowls, singing bowls. Singing bowls.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I don't know if I cut you off.
No, it's cool. I was searching for something, so that's perfect. Good job.
Yeah, I've been singing mantra to my classes for a while they were in Shavasana, and for me, it seems like a big motivator for different projects has been when people have been like, hey, you need to do more of this, or like, we want more of this. So after a while of people saying, when are you going to do more than just sing in Shavasana? I played around with different instruments, and guitar is really hard. Any of you play guitar, like, good work. It's really hard. I tried. I had played crystal singing bowls when I was living in Costa Rica, and it just felt like that was the right path. So I got real brave one day and put up a GoFundMe page, like did all the research to figure out how much it would cost and all this sort of stuff. Put a GoFundMe page. And yeah, the community bought me a set of singing bowls. Not only the community bought me a set of singing bowls, but also someone in the community gifted me a singing bowl.
So cool.
And like people who I met once, people who had come to a class once. It was the most humbling experience ever. I would like open my email and start crying because it would be like people donated, Like, oh my God, people are just giving me money to do a thing that I really want to do. Like, still doesn't meant.
How is that feeling of like receiving that? Because I feel like it's so common for people to be like, oh no, like I couldn't accept that. You know what I mean? Like that's something that I'm super practicing in my life, is like this idea of like being open to like receiving help and like when people offer.
Yeah. Especially money, right?
Yeah, because it's a weird conversation.
Money's tough. Yeah. It was not a small
It's $5.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Kazoo, like
Yeah.
no, the dollar store.
I was asking people for like bagels,
Yeah.
Yeah. When I say I got real brave one day, I'm not kidding. It was like I had to sit down in front of the computer and be like,
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah.
And if nobody donates, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine if nobody donates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had to practice regularly. Like, okay, all I can just say thank you. You say thank you a lot. Just say thank you a lot. And try and stay like soft and open in that place. Not from a place of like, oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Right? But from a place of you made an empowered choice. Like, to click on the links and do the things and whatever. So thank you for that choice. That was a choice that you made because you wanted to support something you wanted to do. But yeah, I totally hear you. It's such a practice. Receiving is such a practice. Still. Always will be.
I think what's so cool about that is you talk about the like person like one-to-one class, right? Or there's a few of those, and oftentimes we hear this idea of the ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, especially when you're teaching or when you're like giving wisdom or talk or doing photography or whatever it is, like sometimes you don't always get that like instant validation back, right? Like you never know what by you showing up in the world, following your heart and doing your passions, like how that's affecting people, right? And then to have that reflected back to you, like even more special experience. But I think just that whole point, that's why it's so important, guys. It's just like, that's why we do this, right? Follow your heart. Like, because by Micayla opening this business, by you doing yoga, by me doing speaking, by all the other guys doing what they're doing, like they're giving you permission, right, to chase what you want, to make it more tangible. And I think that, again, we don't always get to see the impact of this, but it's so cool to have that reflected back, and just to like, I think sometimes, again, you don't always see it, but just like having that faith that it's gonna go up.
And the faith too that maybe like you are gonna see it like down the road, like in the future, or things that you're doing in the present moment because it's coming from your heart. In 2 years, even 5 years, it's gonna have an impact. Like I just like that quote on that, if you saw yourself the way the rest of the world saw you, stand by your own beauty. That's like the foundation of my business now. I just 2 days ago came across the post on my first blog that I ever started from 2014 where that quote came from. And like now it's the foundation of like what I do. You know what I mean? Just like stuff like that. It's like, that's so cool to be able to like know that a seed that you planted years ago is like blossoming into something that you're doing now.
that's like sorry. One more thing. I'm sorry. That's just like started a whole nother hole. But like the patience, right? Like the patience of what we're doing. Like you talked about. What would you say? 9 years before it was like that real like. And I know, and I totally take accountability for this for a large part of my life. It's this idea of instant gratification and wanting like the instant win. Yeah, I mean, we grew up in it, but I also like to like really speak in I statements, like that's me. But we grew up in that culture, and so many people want it, right? And if you aren't willing to, like, I think who said it was probably like Wayne Dyer or something. It's like you can have all these illusory surface level experiences, or you can like choose a couple of things to like really dive below the layers as you talk about. And I just think that becomes such a special experience, and that's where you just keep discovering these different things that like somehow connect the dots going backwards.
Yeah.
What are so to turn this into a question? What are like, I can say 3 like really like some of those layers that have been like super impactful. Like obviously, I think Costa Rica might be one, but can you talk about that? I don't even know if there's 3 on there.
Good question. Yeah, good question.
I know that's like loaded, but
as you were phrasing it, I was like, "Whoa." Okay.
Yeah. Sweaty talking about.
No, it's also a silly word.
Is it? Okay.
It is. I told you. It's really
All
hard.
right. Well, it's just like I just started. So
That's
it's
fine.
has to do with it.
Also, like,
That's
it's a personal issue, actually.
Yeah. So Costa Rica, for sure, was a huge turning point for me. The first time when I went for my teacher training, I had no clue what I was signing myself up for. I knew I was going for a teacher training, but I didn't know that I was going to a community that was founded on doing deep personal inquiry work. That I would be not only surrounded by a whole bunch of other yogis, but a community of people, like 80 people live there, with their family, the whole nine, to meditate together daily and to do all these deep workshops and to live in that way just all the time. And for me, up until that point, I think kind of the yogic lifestyle existed when I went to the studio. And then I went about my normal life when I was not on the mat or in a workshop or whatever. So living in that community where, at any given point, there was some sort of transformative workshop going on where people were in deep process about something in their lives, or like doing a cleanse, or they were whatever it might have been, gave me that lens of like, oh, it's possible to live in full presence and full openness all the time, rather than to go into a workshop or go into a class or engage with my partner at the time and then be like, all right, now I'm gonna go into the rest of the world, I'm just gonna close off and put my smile on and everything's hunky-dory all the time. It was the first time that I was really invited to a space where you can sit down at lunch next to somebody who you didn't know and be like, hey, how's your day going? And then actually give you a real answer. Not just like, hey, thanks, that's yours. Or someone could be like, actually, it's a really hard day for me. I really don't feel like talking right now. And you could be like, oh, cool, okay. That's not about me. That's totally, I respect that. And that has continued to challenge me, especially when I moved back to the Seacoast. I love you all, New Englanders, but we are champions of, how are you? Fine, thanks, how are you? right?
They had like hard workers. Like I don't know if you noticed this, like living when you lived in Montana, but like when I lived in Colorado, like I just noticed how different the lifestyle was.
Yeah.
Like on the East Coast, it's like work your ass off.
Yeah.
All the time. Work your ass off, sometimes head down, like don't say hi to who you're walking like by on the sidewalk. And like out west, the lifestyle was just a little bit more. I just remember being like the first one to work every day, and people would be like, "Why are you like on time? Everyone's like 15 minutes late." It's like it wasn't like a huge deal, you know. It was just like a way more relaxed, walk by people, say hi in the streets if they're a stranger kind of vibe.
Yeah, like actually make eye contact with people. OMG.
Yeah. True. It's true though. We were very much stuck in our own ways a lot of the time on the East Coast. If we're generalizing.
Right, we're generalizing.
Very much.
Big generalizations. But it also then means that there's such great potential when we actually sit down with someone, even if they're a friend we've known for a while. I mean, we were sitting in the coffee shop, whatever, Friday, Thursday, whenever that was, and a friend of ours came over and was sitting down and talking to us, and she was like, you know, wow, it's really nice to talk with you guys. You actually like give eye contact, and you're like here, and you're paying attention. And that can be such a powerful thing to bring into our lives. And it's really amazing to see how, actually how quickly we can disarm that, like New Englander closedness when you are just willing to like sit with someone and like, hi, I'm here.
And it's so funny too, because you talk about, we get stuck in our ways because it's like you create, I mean, this story, right? Oh, it's not that.
Right. We love saying we're busy.
Like, are you kidding? You know,
oh my God.
Around 5 minutes, make eye contact, make a smile. But I mean, it's also, I mean, I can speak from my own experience too. Like, there's just some days where you're like, it's like turmoil inside, and you're like afraid to show up in that way. Because it's not necessarily always, you do get so much like, oh, fine, that it doesn't feel necessarily safe to be like, oh, actually, since you asked. It sucks.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, there's few and far between. But what, like, it's so interesting, such an interesting topic that, like, there's not space or time to do that. Again, generalizations here, but I don't know myself.
Is there a piece of advice that you would offer people who are listening right now to kind of set that foundation for like having those? Because I feel like so many people like want to have these like deeper conversations. They want to step into this place, but there's fear behind it. I don't know always what is behind it, but people just close themselves off. Like, is there a piece of advice that you would offer for people who are like, I want to be in that place?
I think the fear behind it comes from, if we circle back to the whole perfection thing, that we all want to appear, and we live in a, I was just listening to this NPR about this, we live in a culture where we are bombarded by people's Instagram feeds and Facebook feeds and whatever, of the like perfect parts of their lives. And you know, you both are doing huge work in sharing all the flavors of your lives. But I think there's a fear that if we bring like our messiness, that people are gonna see behind the magic curtain, as it were, and be like, oh, you're a shit show? Well, I don't wanna hang out with you.
It's the exact opposite.
It's the exact opposite.
Yeah. People are like, I get it. Like, I relate with you.
Right. People are like, hallelujah, me too.
I'm not the only one.
You know, it's so funny that you're saying this. So I've been like going through this lately. It's like, even though like I cognitively, emotionally, on a soul level understand all that, it doesn't mean that it doesn't still show up.
Oh, for sure.
And I think there's, so to even speak on that, is there's certain areas where you're willing to share your vulnerability, right? Like maybe it's like you can even bring this back to childhood conditioning. Like sadness was okay in the household, but anger wasn't. Or opposites, right? Like you could be joyful, but you couldn't be this. And you know, in speaking about myself, I know anger and sadness are the hard ones for me to like show up vulnerably for. Because I know my anger for me is like intense. That scares me sometimes. So like I have this idea of like, oh, if I get angry, I don't
Who
know.
knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah, who knows? And like, can I even hold that space? Am I gonna scare them away? Like, are they gonna run for the hills? You know, so it's man, it's just such a practice. Such a practice.
And it goes back to we all just want to be in connection. Yeah. We want to feel loved. We want to feel like we belong. And there's the fear, like you said, if you show up in your anger, that you're going to be abandoned. That person's going to say like, oh, you're unsafe, or I feel unsafe with you, or like you're too much, or you're too much. That
My body does weird things.
That if we show up in any way other than the way we think the other people want us to show up,
Ooh, there it is. Yeah.
Which is impossible for us to know.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that I can like psychically get in your head and be like, so Micayla needs me to, you know.
So true.
And Micayla's sitting over there being like, yeah, I think I'm crying. And then we're just like, we're both putting on our chameleon suits.
Trying to mind read one.
And like hanging out and being like, am I doing this right? I don't know.
You're both
Do
anxious.
you like that? Do you like that chameleon suit? Like, I hope so.
Yeah. It's so true though. It is so true. It's so true.
Oh, yeah, this is so great.
Right, rather than be like, today I am a blue chameleon.
Oh,
Yeah.
You are yellow. And like, what's up?
But
What's it like to be yellow?
yesterday I was that color, so like you get what it's like.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I need to hear this so
Yes. What color are you today?
bad. Gray, maybe? Gray?
Is that like dead?
Maybe? No. I don't know. Brown?
It's brown. He's brown.
He's brown today.
I mean, I'm alive, but it's like, it's just like really weird. It's like, you know that weird emoji face I've been sending you? I might have sent it to you. It's like the face was like,
Oh yeah, the one that like.
yeah, that
I'm glad you both demonstrated. Thank you.
one. No, I mean, it's just so, because it's actually, if you saw it, okay, so now I'm gonna challenge, I'm gonna show it to you after.
Okay.
Challenge is trying to make it.
People know which one it is. It's like
It's just like a little.
you want your lips to go this way. Your lips to go that way. And I don't want my thumb is like sticking out this way.
Oh,
that's
God,
good.
I hope I wasn't sweating now, I really But honestly, it's amazing how spirit works sometimes, and just like hearing what you need to hear, because yeah, I feel like there's just been this, even for myself, I just want to talk about this real quick. It's like I feel like I've been going nonstop, like my schedule's been crazy, and I've just been really tired and like spread thin, and like again, that's my own accountability. I'm doing it, I'm choosing it, but not showing up like this. And even people at work being like, oh, where's Mr. Cheery Pants, or like why are you angry, or this or that. And it's like,
See, but I would challenge you on that. I think sometimes when we are fucking exhausted and we don't have the energy to be comedians, that's when it's like, okay, can you just accept yourself as you are right now? You're hangry. Okay.
well, so yes, because I have just been letting those emotions out, but to hear people be like, oh, you're not like this person that you always are, and like, we want you to be. And it's like, yeah, I'm not. Like, basically, like, take it or leave it kind of thing. It's like, I just don't even have the energy. Like, I'm not here to please you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's like a big pattern I'm trying to let go, is like the people pleasing. I'm like trying to show up as like Mr. Perfect. Again, I'm perfectionistic. Yeah, it's so hard to let go of.
Yeah.
Just be like, no, I'm fucking mess sometimes.
Yep.
How's it going? Do you love me? I hope so.
Right.
Alright.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most powerful experiences that I had when I was in Costa Rica, I did this workshop where we did, it's called The Path of Love. If any of you ever want to do it, it's amazing. We did a lot of what's called exposure work, where you stand up in front of a group of people and share about whatever different aspects of your life. And towards the end of the workshop, after like days already of doing this. We had to get up and share something about our lives that we felt like made us unlovable. Right. And I was so struck by sitting there and listening to people share and realizing the experience in myself as they were sharing these things that made them feel unlovable. I was like, oh my God, I love you more for knowing that that's happened in your life, and yet here you are, the person that you are. And that you've been carrying this around in a bucket of shame, thinking that if you tell all of us about this, that we're going to shun you. I was like, oh, okay, so if I can feel more love towards these people hearing these stories, what about mine? What about my buckets of shame?
That's why this is a little bit deep.
I feel like too though, like in those moments you not only respect and love people more, but you become more connected to them and realize whatever you are going on, have going on in your life that you feel ashamed about or struggle with, what you personally are going on might be different, but it's the same feeling. It's the same like feeling that you feel as that person, and that just brings you that much closer to a group of people. I mean, that's like exactly what I do with the workshops that I've been doing. It's like you go into a room with like strangers, and then you leave feeling so connected and like less alone by 100-fold.
And being like, what's going on?
Yeah,
Like,
stay connected forever. Yeah.
You know what I've always found interesting, and maybe this is a perfectionist mindset, but I feel like when you listen to these stories, like, you know, you guys have seen Zach on here, so you know my cousin, right? Like, there's such a soft spot, like so much love for that fucking kid. It's not even funny. Like, it's like I feel like he's my brother every time I'm talking about it, but you know what he's gone through, like from a societal standard, like we could put all these labels on him, right, and have zero compassion. But it's like, I know for me, it's just like I just want to hug him. Yeah. That's it. I just want to hug him and love him. But like, why then? Sometimes I ask myself, why is it so hard for me to do that for myself? And that's the challenge, right? Like that's the work, because I think a lot of times we're our own worst critic. We all know that. And it's like, why? Like that's the practice. Is like, think of like, I've oftentimes thought about like, what I ever like, the stuff I say to myself, or the way I judge myself, would I ever judge someone else like that?
Oh God, yeah.
You know what
I mean, I think a million people have said it, but if you talk to other people the way you talk to yourself, you have no friends. Yeah. If we talk to other people,
Or there was
talk to ourselves.
another one of that if like, or sometimes even the way the words that came out of your mouth were like instantly tattooed on your skin. How much more mindful would you be?
Well, but that's like a real thing though. Like I feel like that's like, okay, for example, like I had really bad skin issues all last year. And it's like, I feel like the way that I was talking to myself is what caused that. You know what I mean? So that like is a tattoo that you're like putting on your skin. Like the way, it's like a plant. Like you speak love to a plant, it will grow. And like it's the same thing. The way that you speak to yourself, it may not show up as your skin. It might show up as stomach problems or headaches, or like it could be anything. But that's so, I just think it's so true. And if you, where were we going with that? The way that you were speaking to your friends, you wouldn't. You would be alone. And
Matt Kahn, who love him. Look him up on YouTube, Kahn. He talks about, the moments where we are afraid, or the moments we are in self-doubt, or the moments we deserve more love, not less. And yet we so often, like, it's like a self-flagellation thing.
we don't feel deserving of it,
right?
It's so interesting. It is like just such this paradox, right? Like, oh, if I do X, like, for example, let's just say in a perfect world, I like perfectly planned. I got my backpack, and I didn't hit the berm in my car, and it all just went smooth. I would have loved myself like hardcore, like great job, nice plan.
Yeah, you get your love now.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the way I did it, I mean, not that I didn't give myself love, but it's like it's harder to like keep myself in a space of like love because I mean that's just programming. Instantly wants to be like, wow, you're fucked up. Like what the fuck did I do wrong? Angels, let's go to bed. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, that comes back to like childhood, right? Like when we do something right, we like usually would get a reward, or like we do something well in school and we get a good grade. So like we're used to receiving more love when our life goes according.
Right, and because we're trying to get love, especially when we're kids, we're trying to figure out what we need to do to get love.
Yeah.
And some of us develop really fucked up patterns, you know, the kids who like figure out that if they bash their head on the floor, they get attention.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's where, it's so crazy how that stuff just manifests moving forward. Why it is such a practice to be able to. I mean, really it is. It's like the process. I've said the same. So many people process of So, wow, that got so deep. Yes.
We ran out of Instagram Live.
That's all right. We only get an hour. So I wanted to talk to you, kind of about as you've gone through the layers, and as you've progressed through your journey, just this level of like being able to trust yourself more and trust this, you know, what we like to call magic, you know, intuition.
Yeah.
And I was hoping you could share the owl story. We just want to share some Harry Potter magic with you guys this morning, as I like to call it.
Straight up.
And I think this is just like, obviously, Ankati's gonna share an awesome story, and I mean, I like to call it Harry Potter magic, but this is just like one example of just like trusting yourself, even when it seems like
ridiculous.
Woo-woo. You know what I mean?
So woo-woo.
So yeah, I'll let you take the mic.
Yeah. In my late 20s, I guess, when I was living in Missoula, my partner at the time and I would go tracking a lot. There are a lot of mountain lions and fun things that live in the woods, and we would go see if we could follow them around, mostly mountain lions. And we went out in the winter and found a pair of wolf tracks pretty close to town, which was really exciting because the wolves are still repopulating Montana. And we followed them quite a ways off trail, like off the main corridor. And very uncharacteristically, we were unprepared, and neither of us had flashlights, headlamps. And I think this was in the days before everybody's phones also had flashlights. It must have been. So we found ourselves standing on top of a ridge, looking down at like the lights of town far away, having no clue where we were at sunset in the dark, and trying to figure out like how the hell we were going to find our way back to the car, or if we were going to try to push back to town, or what else we were going to do. And I heard a barn owl call kind of over my shoulder in the forest, and being woo-woo, I turned to my partner at the time and was like, we need to follow the owl. And fortunately, he's also very woo-woo because he was like, okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we followed the owl. It would call and then fly and then call again, and we would follow it through the woods. Apparently, we couldn't find our footprints or tracks, because that would have been like the logical thing to do, would have been to follow our tracks back, but I don't know, apparently we couldn't do that. Dark, yeah, maybe. Eventually, the owl met up with two other owls. We could hear the two other owls calling. They found one another, and the last time that it called and flew and landed and was with the other owls, we looked down and it had brought us back to the fence line. And the fence line, we had to just basically follow down back into the recreation area, which is where our car was parked. So, yeah, I definitely cried and like had a good conversation with gratitude with the owls, and Joshua like bent down to tie his shoe, and the owl flew across the moon. So it was totally very fun.
Yeah.
But one of those crazy examples of like, I don't know why, this feels ridiculous, and I don't know what else to do. So
Yeah.
we're gonna follow some owls in the woods.
I mean,
That's so cool.
I think first of all, it's cool, but it's just like that's life, right? I mean, there's like so many of those pings that we get. We call them pings. You can call it intuitive moments, but there's so many of them that are just like you get this thing that seems absolutely ridiculous, so outside of like what the norm is or whatever it is,
Logic,
like following
rationale.
owls and you know, it's to get yourself to trust that. And again, it's just like anything else, it's a practice. Because I feel like in my experience, it just keeps getting stranger and stranger.
Yeah.
And you're like really? Like, so it's always this new element of like taking.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny. I've heard this before too. I think Eric Thomas says this. It's like, I wish I could tell you it's going to be easier, but it doesn't. You just get stronger, and you have more faith and more experience and more wisdom to be able to make better decisions. And I recently heard this one too. Like, spiritual maturity is more about seeing the crossroads when it happens and knowing better based on experience and wisdom. Like not having to like experience things. You know, like a lot of wisdom comes from like experiencing like the tragedy or the shitstorm or whatever it is and learning from that. But like getting to this point where you're like, okay, like you can almost foresee how these paths will go to some regard.
Or saying, I think in that case, and in many cases, when I went to Costa Rica for the first time, I knew nothing about Pachamama. It was just like, I kept looking at the website and I just feel like that's where I need to go. And I don't know why. I just kept coming back to it. And I'm so glad that I went. Even though, right, rationale would have been like, you know nothing about this place. And you're going to go by yourself. And recognizing we can't always foresee because there are infinite possibilities out there that we don't yet know how to imagine.
Random turn here.
Go for it.
Where did your like love and maybe like need for poetry come from? I say need because like writing for me is like that. It's like I just like I keep it.
Yeah. A lot of it is how I process the world, I think. That somehow, I mean, there will be days where I sit down, I have so many journals, it's silly, where I sit down with the one where I like write my feelings, and then I'll pick up the other one, which looks very similar. And I need to write it as a poem because somehow that expresses it better, or like more succinctly in using the turn of phrase that poetry affords. It better like captures whatever it is I'm feeling, almost in a way of like by putting it down on paper, I get to explain it to myself. Like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm feeling. That's what this is like right now. Or this is something that I'm finally right now. Or like when I write about nature, you know, it's that feeling of I love sunrises and sunsets. That feeling of a sunrise and sunset is just like, oh my god, I can't even hold it all in, so I've got to try to like put it on paper somehow. And sometimes I write it on paper and I'm like, near captures it, but sometimes it gets close. Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic writes a lot about the process of like the muse coming through. And oftentimes that's how poetry feels for me. You gotta get it. Yeah. It's like I've walked, I mean, when I walk my dog in the woods, I like walked back to my house, like repeating things to myself.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Or like voice memo to myself or whatever, so many different times because it's just like it swoops in and you gotta like come.
Well, I think that's why it's writing in general, like how poetry writing essays is such a gift. because I know for me, and again, you're very influential in helping me find my emotional language. It's like so many times we don't have the words, right, to describe that feeling. And in my eyes, when I look at it, it's like kind of like a courageous exploration. And when you share that, oftentimes we find the words through other people's writing, or movie, or this. Ooh, that's it. That's it. That's what I was feeling. Those are the words I was looking for that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Because again, it's this step-by-step process of like learning, like, ooh. Because I remember we used to sit at the table. Like, I feel bad. Okay, like, what does bad feel like? And be like just trying to like cringe to it because I just didn't have enough words.
Yeah.
So to me, like again, being my own experience, I feel like it's like this very courageous exploration. It's really like a gift. What you both give. That's for your words.
Thank you.
That's so cool because I think always coming back to this like idea of like your genius and like being able to step into it and share what you like. I think there are people who have such a gift, but they're afraid of sharing it sometimes. And I think you saying that maybe could be like a hint for people to be like, oh, like if I step out of that fear and do share these words or whatever it may be, like maybe that is going to touch somebody in a way who needs it.
Painting, music.
Anyway, yeah.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of these, as you go through the layers of your emotional expression, and truly allow yourself to be human and feel like the full range of that, that's where like the creative arts just can't, like, I used to wonder how can you look at a painting and like be moved? Like, what the fuck is that? Honestly, like you just stare at a painting and you start fucking crying, like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then it became, I still haven't had that experience, but like music, right? Like listening to Les Brown, rock, like literally shattered to like just felt like someone punching me in the chest. Like that's how heavy the feeling was. Or like music that can make you cry, or like can get you angry, or get you pumped up, or just to like it's such a gift. Like it's such a blessing to even be able to experience that and have that be influential for you. You know what I mean?
And I think something that you just spoke to as well, I mean, part of the gift of that, and in all of us being in kind of a creative economy of sharing whatever our creative expression is, like for you with photography too, we're all helping each other access a fuller range of emotional experience or like human experience. You know, by being able to read your stories, I don't necessarily have the like same direct experience that you do or that you do, but there's something that it might touch in me, some part of me that's like, oh, I recognize the flavor of that. And then I get to feel whatever that like chest shattering experience, or I get to feel when you were chronicling your experience with the pageant. Obviously, I've never been to a pageant. But I get to feel that like, okay, here we go.
It's happening.
Like rawness of stepping into an experience. Or I think one of the things for me that totally turned the page in my sharing my writing when I was living in Costa Rica, I guess, I wrote a piece that got published on a really sweet website called Tiny Buddha about a relationship experience that I'd had. And it felt so vulnerable to post because it was like, these are the ways in which I was a shitty girlfriend, and here's what I learned, basically. And so many people were like, oh my God, that is so my story. I was like, wow, I'm not the only shitty girlfriend. Who like thought that she was so spiritually enlightened, but actually she was just being an asshole. You know? So that was the turning point. I was like, wow, I need to share more of this stuff.
I get that.
And actually, like, even I think before I met you, you had posted something on Instagram that was actually very inspiring because it was like this raw post of just like this is actually what I feel like, and or something like to that effect. I was like, it like hit again, punched me in the chest because like this is the fucking shit I want. Excuse my French. Sharing. This is the stuff I've never seen. Like this is it. So much sharing. Like I was like, okay, Ankati did it now. No, did it. And then I started doing that because it's like I was like everything in this world, right, has dark and light, and we get to choose what we want to make it.
Mm.
And what I couldn't stand about social media was like it was these constant highlights. And even recently, where I've been like in this one little tire city, like I'm still on social media, like people are like traveling to this place and Peru, and these Fiji islands. I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm here in this like winter place and blah. I'm just working all that.
Mm.
So I was like kind of feeling down, but it's like, again, those are just like it's not always reality, right? Like these are like little slivers, and I just wanted to perpetuate that. I wanted to change the story of like what Instagram had to be. I'm just like, yeah, like some days it's magical. Like I got like a bunch of opportunities today, and it's mine. So I had paralyzing anxiety. You know, and like I looked in the mirror and wasn't proud of me. So thank you, number one. I mean, I just think that's why it's so like. I mean, these kids are inundated with this stuff. You can't escape it. Like at least when we were in high school, it's like okay, go home and like I'm for you know.
Yeah, you're going
nice school.
aim,
Oh my
like
God,
start
that's
internet.
What are you doing in there? Nothing.
Your mom's like, well, Kate, I was on the phone.
I got the phone.
I couldn't do both.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and then again, we like put on our faces and we go out into the world and we do our things, and then we go home. We're jerkily by ourselves.
Yeah. It's very well done.
But this is what I do, guys. We want to encourage like this just real and rawness, and not no one's perfect at it. Some days I'm good at it. Some days I put on this and walls in front of my heart. But and that's what we want to encourage, right? Is the practice of how to.
Yeah. And sharing it.
I'm a burnout.
We joked, my friends and I, that we were gonna make buttons, like t-shirts that said "Stop and Feel,"
Oh.
so that you could just be like, "Hey, how you doing?
Is there
Stop and Feel."
question? Is that actually I don't even want to say that. Like it just makes me think of something stop and feel. And you're pointing right here.
Yeah.
Was that like a double innuendo, or is that just
No, that was actually just conveniently where I would put my butt, right on my heart.
like this?
Stop and Feel.
Probably should
Stop.
Right there. Just right there. We can, when we design the t-shirt, someday we can put it in a heart right on the.
Yeah, make it really obvious.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
So as we're on this topic of really trying to lean into like the feeling and like not every day is easy. What are some like personal challenges that you go through with your journey right now? Like what are some of the things like don't super detail like or share, but like what are some challenges? Because again, the whole point of this podcast is like we got business owners that are out here, and regardless of what Instagram looks like, it's not rainbows and ponytails.
Ponytails!
It actually is ponytails, but
Always fun.
I have my ponytail today.
but that there's like success is like all over the place. So there's so much shit.
Yeah.
Even if it looks like you're successful and you're doing this. What else is
Yeah. I think what is present right now, anyways, like I said this morning, is the dance between like what I'm sharing in the world, what's like being asked of me as far as, oh, will you bring a sound healing to this thing, or will you do this kind of workshop, or will you leading teacher trainings is a big one for me. And like, what's the reality of what my heart, soul, body I think this is the thing with being an entrepreneur or being business owners, there really isn't a roadmap. So every day is like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this in a way that feels truest to me, that feels sustainable for me? It feels like there's kind of this seesaw game that goes on where every once in a while I get a little too far over to the other side of paying attention to what other people are doing, paying attention to what suit of chameleon I should wear, in order to be a yoga teacher or like be a whatever in the world. And then I like look over and I'm like, oh, I feel like I lost myself somewhere along there. Like I've lost contact with my sense of center. And usually that's when I'll like get sick or hurt myself or like whatever. Find myself doing something that I'm like, I don't want to be doing this. Why didn't I do this? And that, like, that's a shitty feeling. Oh, I think I kind of abandoned myself a little bit. And we can do that professionally. We can do that in relationships. Like, you get really swept up in, like, the dating world. And all of a sudden, you're like, whoa, wait a second. 2 years later, where am I? I have like a closet full of all the different chameleon suits. And I lost track of what's most important to me. So that feels like it's at the very root of all those daily struggles. And, I think I know what I need to do to stay centered. It's like, can I just get my ass in gear to do it? And can I be really honest with myself when things feel shitty, that it's because I did it, it's nobody else's fault, it's not circumstantial, it's mine. That's powerful. We're all like, Mom.
Yeah,
it's my fault.
Damn it.
Well, we've been talking for a very long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, final two things. What's in the future?
Stuff.
Period.
Right. You heard it first. Stuff.
Writing a poetry book. We're putting together a poetry book. Yeah. With more poetry than writing. Yoga teacher trainings. Come do yoga teacher training with me.
When's next?
This summer. We start July 15th, I believe. 4 weeks, 200 hours. We'll get to know each other real well.
And people sign up for it.
Barsoul.com. You can find more information also on my website, which is ankatiday.com. Always doing lots of fun workshops. We'll be at Liar's Bench doing some booty on the morning of March 23rd. Be doing a sound bath at Childwood Farm on March 24th.
Yeah.
2 ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, that's great.
So cool. Yeah, you can keep up with all my different events, read my poetry.
Awesome. And on Instagram, right?
And on Instagram and Facebook.
Cool. Well, Ankati, what does it mean to have a lot of heart?
Oh man. I think it goes back to what we talked about like many deep dives ago, which is that willingness to show up fully open, like all in, all there, all present, all flavors, all the time.
I like that. All flavors.
All the time.
All the time.
So much for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So fun. I was like, your story was a therapy session.
That was a lot.
That was
That's
great.
good.
So great. I hope you guys enjoyed that.
We will tag you on here so that people can find you.
Yeah, we'll put you on your website.
We're all having a lot of feelings now.
We're having a lot of things.
We're gonna process.
We don't want to get off of our stools today. At the end of the live video, so we're just still sitting here. All right, we're gonna end it. Thank you guys for tuning in. see.